Hello, I'm here with Nadia Headley, who started out with a business degree and then became the youngest international civil servant at the UN for Barbados, and then went on to become the youngest coordination officer for Latin America and the Caribbean. And Nadia, what you do now is, with all that experience of working with non-profits as well as with business, is you work with non-profits to help them in terms of communicating with the business world, in raising finance and seeking support. But at the moment I'm speaking to you, you're sat in Toronto very early in the morning. Would you like to tell people a little bit about what's happening in Toronto at the moment with regards to COVID-19 and lockdown?
Yes, so Toronto being really small compared to the country, everything is shifting constantly in all the different parts of the country. Here in Toronto in particular, we are really settling into the idea that the kids are not going back to school anytime soon. And we parents are now full-time teachers on top of whatever else we were before. The teachers have been working really well with the parents, from my perspective, to get as much information to equip the parents as possible, providing the assignments, etc. So that has been helpful. We're seeing the government try. There's a lot of debate as to whether or not they're succeeding, but we are seeing the government put in real solid effort to make this as simple of a process as possible for everyone else. But we understand, nobody knows exactly what to do here. Nobody has been through this before. And so it's a bit of a ghost town. It's quite eerie on days when you expect noise and hustle and bustle and traffic, and to not be able to see any of that. The weather is changing and you want to be outside and you want to enjoy it, but you're really calculating whether or not a walk is worth it these days. And so there's a lot of shift. But I just want to say thank you again to all the essential staff who have to show up for work still, and for all of the frontline workers, whether you're at the grocery store or you're at the hospital, we do appreciate the effort, and we're keeping ourselves healthy to lessen your burden.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, where my home office is opposite a school, and I used to be able to set my clock by the time the kids were going in and coming out, and it is strange, although we're on Easter half term at the moment. And we have a clap for the NHS every Thursday night, which is quite emotional, to thank the NHS and all the care workers in the care homes and all the other frontline staff. Do you have the same sort of thing happening in Canada at the moment?
I don't know of a specific thank you. There is one particular town where they had the highest number of individuals living in an assisted facility who died of COVID. And so the town, people have been driving by and honking as a parade and waving balloons and whatnot. And there's a song by a famous writer, forgive me, I have no idea who wrote the song or what the song is, but the name of the song is the name of the town. And so people have been kind of with their guitars, acoustic, singing the song on the outside of this care facility. So I know of that effort in particular, but yeah, we don't have like a mass thank you like that.
Maybe it'll come over. I think it spread to us through Europe with social media, so maybe, but we shall see. And in terms of, I mean, you specialise in supporting the charity and non-profit sector. Must be very troubling times because of a lot of the traditional routes of raising finance and getting support are obviously closed off. But that's something actually you've anticipated, and you've been trying to support charity nonprofit executives with for a while, isn't it? And in fact, you've published a report, a really good report on the mindset is one of the critical things that you talk about between a non-profit and a business community, and the mindset of those leaders within those. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and your thoughts on that,
Sure.
why you raised it?
Yes. So first of all, I've been looking at this trend over a few years. Now, my background is originally in actuarial science, which means even if I don't apply the mathematics, the principle is simple. You look at things that happened before and you use that information to take a really good guess at what can come next. And so looking at the conflicts, so the Iraq War, and the various conflicts that the world engaged in the early 2000s, looking at the 2008 financial economic breakdown across the globe, and how the donor countries responded to that. It was a very long-lasting change in the donor community. And so when the donor money starts at the top with the G5 and the G7 and the G20, and then the numbers get bigger and the amounts of money get smaller as it comes down, what happens when everybody is concerned with their own problems and foreign aid is now unthinkable? And not only is foreign aid unthinkable, but domestic aid has to be reduced because we are dealing with a crisis. And so I wouldn't have been able to say what the crisis would have been that would capture everyone, but it was possible after 2008, when we saw so much of the world wrapped up in the economic crisis. It was possible that a global crisis could occur and that no countries would have any real thought, care, or responsibility for any other country. So how does that look for charities then? It means that very suddenly and for a long time, funding sources are going to, one, shut down, and two, shift in priorities. And then they now have to become highly efficient, which means they're most likely looking for really solid organizations who have delivered and been able to use a little bit to do a lot for a long time. And so, you're really going to want to prioritize the international organizations where you can leverage their reach and leverage their networks a lot more than the really small nitty-gritty charities on the ground. On the other side, we have businesses. We know as entrepreneurs, this is a really odd, shaky time. And so I've been saying for a very long time that private sector engagement is one of the hugest missing pieces in the discourse on development. Why is that? From the private sector side, we see things very differently. We see opportunities in just about any situation. The odd thing is that working with charities, you have this optimism from deep within you, but you kind of need to take a pessimistic outlook. You have to be really good at describing the problem. You have to be really good at telling people everything that is wrong so you can get the support that you need, right? And then you end up really focusing in and zeroing in on, everything that has to change, and that can become extremely overwhelming. A business person will come in and go, oh, nobody here is wearing shoes. This is a great market to sell shoes, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of saying, oh, there's such a huge problem, there are no shoes here, we need you to send shoes. A business person might say, well, I know a cobbler, let's bring him over, teach someone else how to become a cobbler, and then let's start a franchise. And everybody gets out together. And so for a long time, we've needed the perspective of both sides to come together. But now more so than ever, Sue, because the nonprofits are about to face the uncertainty with which businesses are extremely familiar. Businesses also will need a new way to speak to their communities. businesses will need a new way to say, I am here. I am a human being. We're an organization made up of human beings. Yes, we throw our logo on everything, but at the end of the day, we're just people trying to figure it out. And so bringing those two together will be important.
And I think the things that were coming out for me in your report is this understanding of what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So matching abilities and skills as opposed to the not-for-profit expecting to receive but not give anything in return. And the other thing that really struck me from your report was when we were talking about mindsets and the attitude of the individual. I think that lots of people have an altruistic attitude, but the first thing they need to do is feed the family. You know, that if COVID-19's taught us anything, the first step for everybody is survival.
Yes.
And the person, whether it's the executive in the non-profit or it's the business owner, the first thing is you've got to pay the bills. You've got to keep the roof over your head. You've got to make sure that the kids are fed. So working within that framework, and one of the things I liked in your report was challenging those who are hoping to receive funding or support. How would you feel if you didn't have any income, if you didn't have that basic survival around you? And in actual fact, COVID-19 is something where all of us are facing that. We're in that survival arena, and it gives everyone great insight into what it's like for which, as you say, a lot of business owners are used to feast and famine. And a lot of non-profits are used to feast and famine, but maybe the people at the top aren't used to the salary being part of that feast and famine. And so being able to fight for survival and be able to keep the good practice and the funding and the support coming through on a regular basis is a real challenge, and something that a lot of business owners already deal with on a regular basis. So there's a lot of potential learning that can be shared there, isn't there?
Exactly. And it shows the need for community and who needs to be in this community together. Because if we're all struggling to survive in silos, none of us will. But the minute we can leverage our experiences, our knowledge, and be able to pour energy into one another, when you're failing and you're tired and nothing seems to go right, you need that person to come along and say, hey, we've done this before, we got it, But if you're spinning in your own mind on your own, and there's no one else around you, then how are you going to even have the mental fortitude to get through? And so for our organizations, especially small charities and small businesses, to not just get through COVID, but to take this time to reposition ourselves so that we can actually exit COVID stronger, we need to come together. The for-profit and the not-for-profit need to band together. I'm glad you mentioned the need for the mindset shift. In the ebook you're talking about, 3 mistakes nonprofits make when engaging the private sector. It really just starts from mindset. It starts from approaching this the right way. And so in there, I say 3 times, businesses are not your alternate source for funding, over and over.
You do.
Yeah.
I think it's a really great publication and a very good place to start, Nadia. How can people get hold of your publication? Is it on the 2114 website?
Yes. Yes. So it's www.2114.ca. So all numbers in the middle. www.2114.ca. However you remember that, it's 4 numbers, 2114.ca. Really simple.
What does the 2114 stand for?
So 2114, those are the dimensions of my island, Barbados. We are 21 miles long and 14 miles wide at our longest and widest points.
Right, that explains it.
It totally does.
Nadia, I've really enjoyed catching up with you. Thank you. And thank you for
Thank you,
sharing your
Sue. Thank you.
expertise. What I'll do is I'll make sure we post the link to your website so people can download the document that you've written.
Wonderful.
And thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue. Really appreciate the time.